anybody else ever had a flat tire on their lawnmower?
I didn't even know that was a thing.
I knew
Only
I knew my riding mower had tires, but I have never in my almost 40 years on this earth had a flat tire on a riding mower.
So that lawnmower is really old, though. Because we got it from my grandma.
I am
So it's like 20 years
legitimately
old.
holding it together with duct tape at this point.
Right? It's like about 20 years old.
It may be older than that.
Maybe
I don't know.
Who knows if the tire
I
ever
spent
been
an
replaced.
hour trying to get it started on April 1st because I do not mow before April, and I held to it, even though all the neighbors were peer pressuring me into it. I didn't do it. And then, so after I got it hot wired, that's a whole other story I'm not even going to get into, where I just
Didn't you use a paper clip or something?
Well, that's what I did last summer
Okay.
to short the fuse underneath the seat so that it would run. So that didn't work this year. So I just cut the wires and taped them together. That seemed to work. So I'm racing against the spring thunderstorm that we have barreling down our throats.
And that was part of the wave of big storms that came through our area.
Yeah, through the Midwest area.
The Weather
and
Channel was all over it.
as I'm finishing up...
It was like the night before. You weren't out in the really bad weather.
As I'm finishing up the section 3 of 4 of our yards, that's how I've got it sectioned off, I noticed it's driving funny, it's weird, and all of a sudden I look down and there's a flat tire on the front, and I don't even have words
I'm surprised you didn't go lay in the street.
to express the frustration that washed over me. I quit.
Do you know that meme with David Tennant where he's standing in the rain, like looking sad?
Yeah.
That was probably you.
I mean, it rained on me earlier in the process, but then it had stopped, and I could have finished had the flat tire not just
I'm just
taken
saying,
it out of
even
me.
if it really wasn't raining, just the whole, like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Daniel, I think we've talked about this on the podcast before, and our podcast lore has more flat tires than any one human being I've ever met. It's almost indescribable.
And yet somehow I found a first. This is my first lawnmower flat tire.
I don't even know, like, how do you replace? Do they make, like, little
I'm
replacement
going to try and
lawnmower
inflate
tires?
it with my little inflate. I have a whole kit designed to get the car tires back up and running. And so I'm going to apply that methodology to the lawnmower first and then see what happens from there. And if not, then I'm not going back to push mowing. So if
That
somebody
used to
out there's
take
got a
forever.
kid, kids don't mow grass anymore, apparently.
Soft.
Yeah, anyways. Hey, everybody. Welcome to We Watch TV, the podcast about the TV that we watch. I am Daniel. She is Hope. This is episode 63. We are back. We took a break. Things got a little crazy. We knew it was going to happen one of these days, and it happened. We missed a week.
It was kind of a bummer because we both have OCD, and I'm glad you got the number right, 63. I was just fact-checking you on
I
everything
made
right
sure.
now. Yes. And we wanted to really, and we made it over a year of consistently posting every Tuesday, even during the holidays. Even people that have like paid podcasts take time off. But basically, we had a very enjoyable Easter weekend, very kind of low key, but you know, we had a nice time. And then we just got so tired after our holiday events that we didn't record over the weekend. And then we thought Monday, oh, we'll just do it after work. And then the lawnmower incident happens. And then we were like, well, maybe we'll push it out late Tuesday evening and we'll record after work Tuesday and we'll just get it out to you guys later. And then our area was under severe threat for tornadoes, bad thunderstorms, bad winds. Fortunately for us in our town where we are, we did not have nearly as bad of effects as some of the towns around us that did get severe damage by tornadoes. I felt like we ended up, for once, being pretty lucky in this because, y'all, when somebody so much as sneezes near our house sometimes, we might be without power for 6 hours. One time somebody hit a pole out power for 8 hours, more than once.
4 times
Four
in the 15
times.
years that we've lived where we are at right now. 4 times that same pole has
We're a
been
little
hit.
bitter about it.
And I'm sitting, like at some point, I'm going to write a letter to the county commission and be like, "Hey guys, maybe you should move the pole."
You know what you needed? You needed to run for office like Claire did on Modern Family.
I'm going to run for office just to move that power pole to the other side of the road, so that people will stop hitting it.
I don't even know if we talked about this when we did our marathon recap a couple podcasts back, but we drove for that trip. So it's like a 14-hour drive when you include stops. We come back and we had this alert that we got when we entered the state of West Virginia. So we have about 3 hours left till we had to get home. But it's about 3 hours.
Roundabout, yeah. Once we get into West Virginia.
So we had this raining doom, like, oh my gosh, we're gonna come home to no power. We walked in the house,
and there was power,
and our power was on, and we were like, great, awesome, it came back. Within about 30 minutes,
it turned off. So I had just gotten in the process of getting ready to take a shower. I had to take a shower by candlelight, and we probably had the power off a good. And this is like winter, so it was cold. 4 hours, 5 hours that we didn't have it. So the fact that we did not lose power at all, because we did, especially that late morning area, did have some pretty bad storms and high winds go through, is remarkable. So we're just going to call that a win. So we were like, you know what? A win's a win.
A win's a win.
A win's a win.
So we're sorry we missed a week, but we're only human. It was bound to happen at some point. But we have been watching some TV, even though I feel like we are right now in kind of the bleak zone. Everything's sort of waiting until maybe some stuff in May, but as June. But we did watch a show, which somebody already roasted me on Twitter about it. They're like, oh, you're just now discovering this show.
2022 called,
Welcome
and they want their show back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, other than that person making that comment, I never remember anyone talking about this show. Your sister is the only one that I had heard talking about this show.
And she highly recommended it to us.
And yes, she highly recommended it. I never heard a lot of buzz about it. Go ahead, Daniel. Tell us about what the show is, the name of the show.
Yeah, so we watched Severance. That is with Adam Scott, I believe is his name. And a lot of other actors. Patricia Arquette. A lot of other actors that are in a lot of things, but you don't really know what their names are. I don't know what the guy's name is, but for some reason, Barton Fink is what sticks out to us. So season 1 of Severance on Apple TV Plus came out in 2022. So yes, we are late to the game. However, season 2 is being filmed currently, so it's relevant in the sense that at least late this year,
possibly,
crossing my fingers, probably next year.
Read an article about it. They said maybe end of 2024, December-ish time, but you might be looking more at 2025 because they were already delayed before the strike. Yeah. And before Daniel goes into, again, sort of what the synopsis is about, I want to put this PSA out there right now. We are a spoiler podcast. You guys know this. This show is so good. I think everybody should make time to watch it. If you do not want to be spoiled, please check those chapter markers and go ahead to the next section and then make time to go watch Severance.
Or just stop right now and go watch it.
Yes, this is your warning. This is your warning.
Before we get into any spoilers about the show, I'm going to tell you right now, as of this moment, we are considering having a conversation about whether this show is in competition with The Boys for the best thing going.
Absolutely.
I think that with the season 4 of The Boys so close in June, probably what we'll do is we'll see how that goes through and then have that conversation after The Boys has come out. But this show meets all the markers of it has a great first season. It's got a second season we know is coming. It's amazing. So again, I want to echo what Hope said. If you have any interest in watching Severance whatsoever, which I believe you should, if you listen to us because you enjoy our opinions about television, then stop now, go watch Severance.
Final warning.
Come back.
Oh,
we're
and
giving
it's
you
produced by Ben Stiller.
Yeah, produced by Ben Stiller. We're giving you ample minutes long to turn this podcast off. Actual final warning. Snape killed Dumbledore. I know. How could I? All right. Here we are. So this is the spoiler section where we're going to talk all about Severance. So before we talk about anything specific, I'm actually the synopsis for the show really isn't a spoiler because they come out with it immediately in the first season, in the first episode. In fact, the first 3 episodes, they spend making it implicit about the idea of severance. And so there's this company called Lumen, and they have what they call a severance floor. The severance floor is very simple. You have a chip installed in your brain, and when you go to work on the severance floor, it turns off all of your memories, personalities.
Like, you still know what, like, clothes are.
Yeah.
You still know how to pee. You still know what coffee is.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, you still know what like a goat is.
Yeah.
We'll get into that, but you don't. What you don't know is you don't. They call him. That's your innie
Your
life
innie
when you're at work.
to your outie.
And
it
your
separates
outie,
the
yeah.
two personalities.
Your outie is like your outside, like where you don't, you know, like if you have a wife or a husband or kids or a pet or what your hobbies are, what your interests are. Do you like to read? Do you like to write? What kind of car you drive? You don't know any of that. All you know is who you are in the work life. Because that was something at first Daniel would be like, well, do they even know what this and such is? And then they did a good job with answering that question. Like, yes, they do. You just don't know, like, who you are.
And then very quickly also they come out and basically like, not only is this a known thing to the protagonists of the story, but it is a known thing to the wider world. In fact, it is a socio-economical controversy.
Political thing, yes.
That this company is doing this. And so
and
I thought that
threw me off.
Yeah, that threw me off.
Because I thought, like, at first, I was like, oh, it's going to be, like, a secret that his family... But then you think about it, like, how could you keep that a secret? Like, everyone would be like... I guess they could just give the Daniel response, it's fine. How's work today? It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Or, like, talking to, like, your teenage child. How was school? It's fine.
Yeah, or, you know, if somebody says, what do you do for work? And I say 2 words, and they're like, oh, never mind.
What does Chandler do?
I'm sorry that I asked you this question. And so, really, the plot of the story picks up when 2 things happen. So, Adam Scott's character arrives for work, and we see him sobbing. And I think we kind of talked about
His character's name is Mark, by the way.
Yeah, we talked about the first couple episodes last week, so we won't... Not last week, 2 weeks ago, so we won't get too much into that. But basically, the inflection point is he arrives for work, and his boss, who is also a good friend... No, Petey...
Oh, Petey, okay.
Is not there. He is no longer with the company.
Yes.
And he's taken aback by this. And at the same time, he's given responsibilities for that, and Heliar is given to him as a responsibility to introduce her to the world of Severance.
Patricia Arquette is her character.
Is their overall boss,
and she is not severed.
Correct, yes.
And we had some questions about that at first.
They left us hanging for a little bit. And there are several characters running around the Severance floor that are not severed, which makes for some interesting things that happen. And so essentially, Mark's character is responsible for getting Helly, oriented to the Severance area and going from there. And she's not interested. And it goes on for many episodes.
To the point that she even tries... Like, you can try to write, like, a resignation letter, but if, like, your outie denies it, you can't do that. And supposedly, you can't write yourself notes or the elevator will pick it up. So she tries to send a message to her outie, to herself, and basically tries to off herself. She tries to unalive herself in the elevator. Yeah. Ends up being in the hospital. Her outie's like, no, you're not even a person. You're not even a person.
And I think it's a really interesting ethical conversation they're having about about that kind of thing. But I think the first thing that I just wanted to point out was the first thing we talked about when we started watching the show was office culture. Yeah. And
that's what I was about ready to say, is that I feel like the whole not a person thing, I feel like this show is almost like taking a hit of how corporate America views so many of its workers. If you're not one of the, big guys at the top, like that, you're not a person. You're supposed to be a worker. I feel like they make references to that. They do make a lot of references to like, hey, instead of raises and good healthcare and stuff, we're going to, and I think we talked about this in the episode where we introduced Severance. Instead of that, we're going to give you a melon party and a waffle party, which that ended up being a lot creepier than I thought.
That turned out to be a thing.
Now the egg party.
Oh, I'm down on the egg party.
That is what they say. The egg parties are elite.
Yeah.
I want to have an egg. That's
deviled
what I want
eggs.
to do.
Just lots of different types of deviled eggs.
I want to do that for Christmas.
Deviled egg party?
Yes. Every year, and I feel like it's always on your side of the family. We're always like, what type of food we want to have because it's more of a low-key gathering. I just am putting it out there, egg party. Hannah, I know you're listening.
Just
what
egg party. That's
egg
it.
Party.
Egg party. Either that or a
variety. A lot of farting,
not dinner party.
And with that household. Yes, the not dinner party.
And so, they do play on the themes of like companies saying your family. And I actually have a note here where one thing Heliar says at one point is like, I could not with a razor to my throat be more uninterested in being your family.
Yes.
Like she is just so rejecting the idea of being stuck in there.
Absolutely.
And her outie is like vehemently sure
Yes.
that she is in there.
And can I just say that I absolutely, it was by about episode 3, although I think I put it out in the universe in episode 2. I totally called the origin of Helly. And really, whenever they took where they did like the tour of the company, that's where I don't remember what episode that was in. And I'm like, what do you think about Helly? So we're just going to go ahead and skip around because we're not going to do an episode by episode catch up. Helly actually turns out she's like the daughter or the daughter
of the CEO
the daughter
of the company.
of the CEO. She's part of the Egan family.
And she jumped in there in order to show the greater world how good of a thing Severance could be.
How great Severance is.
As a political and just bullcrap, because we know it's not. But in the end scene, what happens is eventually they figure out that they're capable of being turned on.
It's called the overtime.
Outside of the Severance floor, and so they scheme together and are able to pull it off for a certain amount of time. And she wakes up at a party where she is going to be unveiling the greater idea for Severance to the whole world, except instead of it being
why everybody should be
why
severed.
Everybody should do it. And they even introduce a lady at one point who like got severed to have her baby.
Absolutely. So Mark, Adam Scott's character, his sister, she is pregnant and she has a baby in the show, and they go off to her husband is definitely kind of a hippie type. He writes a book.
Yeah.
All the
that is phenomenal, by the way.
It's like ends up being like contraband basically, because they see it on Mark's doorstep. They take it, so the people at the company have it. They find it though and don't turn it in, and all read it, and they build it up to be something that's not. But that aside, they go Mark's sister and her husband go off to this cabin to have their baby, and they meet this other woman who seems just really out of it. And I looked at you, I said, I'm always looking, you look at like set designs, the way things are filmed. I'm always looking at costuming, and I said, what's up with like the blue? Because a lot of people would always wear blue that were in the company. She had this blue ribbon on. She seemed really out of it and just so disengaged with the process of having a baby. And I'm like, what if she's part of it and she's been like severed to have her baby? And then it turns out she absolutely was, because what they're wanting to do by showing that why Severance is so great is that, hey, you can be severed to have a baby. You can be severed to do all these different things. And they want to push it out and probably make money off of it into the real world. And that's what's causing a lot of the political disputes, because I think there's the issue of what if they just make people get severance?
Well,
because they want worker bees.
Yeah.
They don't want you to have your outside personality. They want work to be your life. And that's kind of what a lot of, sadly, you hear a lot about that about corporate America. Like, they don't want you to have an outside life. They want work as your friend. What did they say in the
make work your favorite?
Yeah, make work your favorite.
So it's like the rich people, they get to have severance to avoid the things they don't want to face, like the pain of childbirth. Everybody else gets to have severance because you need to be a good little worker bee.
Absolutely.
And then we also, and this season didn't really show us much of that, but there are people that never leave.
Yes.
And that's the big thriller.
It showed us a little bit of it.
One of the reasons Mark chose to become severed is because I think they said like 6 months prior to him choosing to go down there, his wife passed away in a car accident. And through the point of the show, we find out his wife is down there. Absolutely. As she is the therapist in the severed floor.
And I called that one too.
Except we never see her in the outside world. So we don't really know what's happening with her right now.
Miss Casey.
I think you brought this up, maybe somebody on the internet had postulated this, that she probably is actually brain dead.
Yes.
And that
was a Reddit person.
Yeah, and they're using the Severance chip to activate her, and they're testing Mark to see if he recognizes her, because they're trying to determine how good is this chip.
Absolutely.
And so...
And they have Miss Casey as like the therapist.
Mm-hmm.
So after Helly tries to off herself, they have Miss Casey sit in the department all day. And I did feel like Mark I do think he has kind eyes. They make a reference to that. I don't think he didn't recognize her at all, but I felt like he did have like a connection. Like he tried to, when Miss Casey got in trouble because they all left,
he tried to help her.
Very bad about that. And I actually looked at you at one point because I was like, I don't think a big twist is going to be that Helly and Mark are together. I was like, I think they might be trying to set them up for this show, although I think that's collectively shot in the can for season 2, because I don't think we're going to see regular Helly that we've known and her any again. I don't know.
I would be surprised. Yeah,
I would be surprised. I think she might be the villain.
I will be very.
What do you think?
I am. It's one of those things where season 2 always is tough because it kind of breaks the mold that you got comfortable with season 1.
Absolutely.
And
that's why I said I think she might be the villain.
Yeah, I believe she is the villain, and I think it'll be really difficult to. I don't know that we ever see Helly R again.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Like, why would
that.
her, unless they find a way to activate her, right? Again,
yes.
I don't know how you logically come to that conclusion. Why would she ever put herself back in there?
But circling back to the whole Ms. Casey thing, they had her basically as a therapist, like Daniel said, just to check in on Mark, make sure things are going well. And then we started to put it together when they were back. They had found a way. It was the overtime switch. And suddenly he's turned on. He's at a party with his sister, his brother-in-law. And I'm like, somebody show him a picture. Because we found out before, right? When they showed the picture, or did we just suspect it?
The show revealed it to us prior, because they showed Audi Mark looking at a picture of his wife.
Absolutely.
And we were like, oh my gosh, that's Miss Casey.
Yeah.
And so that was the episode prior.
Scene,
yeah.
And then the bone-chilling scream that she's not, did they say she's not dead? Because I don't think he said she's alive, right?
Yeah, like she's not dead. And then that was like the end of the season.
So, and Helly is getting ready, like we said, to give that speech. She's supposed to talk about how good it is. So she gets up there and is like, hey, don't believe them. Severance is terrible. It's awful. And then obviously the switch gets turned off. That's why we both think, I really think that's what they're going to do. I think maybe we'll see Helly R again, but I think that actress is going to be on there. So she and Mark did have a romantic moment before they went home from work that night. I think that is just about as much for all my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans as when Daisy and, what was his name? I don't even remember his name now. I've fugue stated that.
Oh, yeah.
Ward, Agent Grant Ward, they kissed, and then right away it was revealed he's Hydra. I think that's I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think her Helly Egan, I think she is probably a pretty terrible person. Like, if I had realized, that I tried to off myself in this Severance world, I think I would love myself enough to be and see that I'm still a person, to put a stop to it. And Audi Mark was already starting to say, I think I want to break away from being severed. I think I don't want to do it anymore. And now that, his any information has the stuff about, seeing the picture of his wife, he's going to be very different.
Yeah. But now, if we're going to talk about romance in the show, I think we have to talk about the ship of the show, right?
Yes. So, Christopher Walken, I don't know if we talked about this because it's been 2 weeks since we've done a podcast. He's redeemed himself for his performance in Dune because he was phenomenal in Severance. Now, I don't know, is he good or bad? There is some debate about that on Reddit. Regardless, he and Irv, is that his name?
Yeah.
Or Barton
Fink.
Their chemistry off the charts.
Listen,
off the charts.
The show said we need 2 older actors, and they need to be weird. They need to give off a vibe. And they got the 2 perfect actors to give off that vibe.
But it works.
Yes, and like I said, and like Hope said, we criticized Christopher Walken's role in Dune Part 2 because it just took us out of the film. But he slotted into the role he was supposed to be playing here in Severance just so perfectly. It was phenomenal. And I believe he got an Emmy nomination for that.
He did.
So it made sense. But he just, whatever he was supposed to be doing in there. And I agree with you. I think there is still some
stuff that we don't know.
Some stuff we don't know about his Audi. Because we never
on a different department.
Yes.
Than Irv. And Irv, when you meet him, he is that classic older coworker that everybody has, really chose that company line.
Yep.
Just is all about the company. And then he meets, I think it was, I don't even know, they make the art. He's very interested in art, which we later find out that
his
Audi is an artist.
Yeah.
And it kind of takes that relationship does play that pivotal role in getting Irv to be let's burn it all to the ground, because essentially what happens is somehow Christopher Walken's character, he his Audi decides to retire, or so we think.
Well, his Audi conveniently decides to retire as soon as their two departments have decided to band together to help each other figure out what in the world's going on down here.
It's a little too convenient.
And it's just human nature. Everybody's a little curious.
Yes.
And all it takes is multiple people being curious about something together to start something. And that's what's happening. Yeah. And that's yeah, exactly.
And then you shut it down.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the allegory they're going for there.
And there's something up with Herb that was revealed, because we got to see him in his Audi life. And not only was he drawing the halls of, like, the break room where they get punished, he opens this chest. He has, like, directions to find Christopher Walken's character.
In his Audi world, yes.
And it makes me, this is another Reddit theory I thought was really good. They're like, what if Herb was so against the severance that he decided to sever himself to try to take down the company, but then his any life ended up doing the exact opposite and being all about it. And so there was because they say that his Audi, it's shown that his Audi never sleeps. His Audi, I think, is trying to figure out what's going on with the innie.
Yeah, that seems like it's almost on purpose.
Because he was always sleepy at work. He'd see, like, it would be like black goo, which was later revealed to be paint. So what do you think? I would love it if their romance was genuine and if it was just them being messed with. I don't want Christopher Walken to be bad.
I think the romance is genuine, but it was the innies.
Yeah.
Romance and
but why does his Audi have directions to his house?
I don't know.
That's the question.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think Christopher Walken was genuine with his feelings, or do you think he was messing with Irv the whole time?
I think his innie was.
You think his
but
innie
I don't
was?
know,
We don't know about
like,
the Audi.
We don't know.
They could be like mortal enemies.
Yeah, for all we know, like, we really don't know anything, and until season 2, we're not going to know anything.
And what's the other guy's name that works with them?
Oh,
he has the glasses.
Ethan?
I can't remember.
No.
Anyway, that
Waffle
character.
Party guy.
Yeah, the one that really wanted the waffle party, then he ends up getting the waffle party. That was weird. So he eats waffles in this room and then goes to lay down in this bed in the museum. And then these, like, people, like, come out, like, almost like strippers, but with scary, like, Mardi Gras type masks.
Yeah, that was weird. It was a sex party. I mean, the waffle party is actually a sex party.
And his character in general was sort of just like that kind of whatever type of coworker. He's just there. He likes the incentives. He's chill. And I'm like, that'd be great if not everybody had a sob story for why they choose to be severed. Because we don't really know why Irv chose. Obviously, we know now why Helly chose. We know why Mark chose. So I'm like, what if this guy just wanted to go forget about work and go back to his normal life? And that seems like what he was doing until they activated, and this is how they found out about the overtime, like, activation that they could do with their brains. They activated him because he had hid something. His innie had hid something, and apparently it was so important that the guy who works for Patricia Arquette's character, who's like kind of the main lady on that floor, did not tell her that he did this, and it didn't quite work out because he heard his son calling for him.
He saw his son. His son ran in at the last moment before they turned it off.
He heard his son. He saw his son for like 2 seconds, and then so when his innie gets there, he's like, I have a son. What the heck? Yeah. So suddenly he's in on it. That's what kind of took him, because, like, how could you, if you, like, suddenly that changes everything. If you find out that you have a child, you want to know more. And then he finds out he not only has one kid, he has another kid too?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. So
we don't know why he chose to get severed. I honestly thought they'd go more into Petey than they did on this show. We got to meet Petey's ex-wife and his daughter at the funeral that Mark decided to go to, because I think he was that's that point where he was contemplating, does he want to really be severed? This strange man shows up that claims to work with me, tells me all these things, so I think he went there out of curiosity. And and then he sees Petey's daughter later at, like, a concert, and basically her band was singing a song about, like, how much the company sucks.
Yeah.
Like, is it Lumen?
Lumen. Petey was the avenue to put the catalyst to put doubt in Mark's brain, and ultimately to lead him to finding that doctor, which we only saw very briefly, who is the person that actually, like,
does the surgery, right?
She does the surgery to cause severance, and looks like she's trying to come up with a way to reverse it.
Yeah, she said that it didn't work on Petey because he didn't follow her instructions.
Yes.
I do think his daughter, they wouldn't have brought her in for another episode if they don't have plans maybe to showcase her in the second season. So really the show, I think we're either super dark people. I do think it's funny in a weird way. Like, I don't know if everybody would agree with me, though.
There is very dry, dark humor in this show. If
Mark,
you know
you
how,
have kind eyes.
Yeah, if you know how to find it. And I think anybody who has existed in an office environment ever in their life is going to find some of that humor. Anybody who's just dry and sarcastic like we are. Yeah, the music party. Like, you're going to find it fun. It was funnier than I thought it was going to be.
It was a self-deprecating in a way with some of it, but then just very dry humor. And just like that whole, like Daniel said, the whole take on like office culture, corporate America. But I have not felt this good about a show since we watched Succession. And we can't consider Succession and the best thing going because it's
ain't no longer
sadly
going.
off the air, which I think it could have had another season. But I have enjoyed shows since we finished Succession, but I haven't had that. And I'll definitely tell you guys this. The first episode, I was hooked. Second episode, totally in. Third episode, we're rolling right away. Episode 4 is where we were like, wow, this show is great. So that's usually my rule, too. I have to at least get through 4 episodes. And like I said, I was still into it. But episode 4, and I think episode 4 was one of the longer episodes of the season.
Yeah, it was.
Was just nonstop. And then I don't know about you. Well, I do know about you.
Yeah,
I
you
watched
do.
you. I was like on edge. This is not the show where you just can kick back and kind of relax.
No, it's not.
Like I had so much anxiety. At one point, Daniel was doing like when he watches like sports, you sit on the edge of the couch because you can't sit back.
I was literally on the edge of my seat.
Quite literally.
For the finale episode. Because I did not know. Like, we knew the entire episode was Dylan, that was the character's name, holding those 2 levers so that the other 3 could be overtimed and their innies could be on the outside for a little bit. And we knew the episode was going to end when the one security guy got in there and stopped him from doing that. And the whole time it was just like this constant build of like, when is this going to happen? And it just kept on going and kept on going. I thought, for sure, when Mrs. Selvig arrived, Patricia Arquette's character arrived at the conference, that she was going to stop Helly before she got on stage. And then she didn't. And I thought for
she
sure.
was at the party with Mark's family because she's posing as Mark's neighbor, Mark's sweet, kind of lonely neighbor. And at one point, she had gone so much to get into Mark's family life that she was like helping Mark's sister nurse the baby. She claimed to be like a lactation specialist. So Mark's sister gives her the baby. So at one point, and then like he's in there talking with her because that's where she finds out because Mark slips up and calls her by her work name.
Yeah.
And we're like, and we see her get in the car to race to the thing where Helly is. And Daniel and I are like, where is the baby?
Is
the baby rolling around in the back seat? Where's the baby? Which the baby was fine.
I think
she had just set the baby down, but there was a worry that she like was kidnapping this kid. And I'm like, are they going to sever the baby?
I will say that the entire season, there was a 9-episode season. The first 8 episodes of this show all were about making that last episode as tense as possible.
Absolutely.
And it might be the most tense I do not recall the last time I felt that kind of intensity watching an episode of TV. Like, I didn't know what usually you and I are sitting here trying to figure out what's going to happen and what's going on. I had no idea what was going to happen, and it was refreshing.
Well, like the panic, like I did figure out like stuff with Helly, but like the whole panic with like the baby, and Mark's like, I just gave her our baby, and then we're wanting Mark to see the picture to find out about that Miss Casey's his wife. So we have another character, which we've slightly talked about, Mr. Milchek. Am I saying his name right? Do we think that he is severed and never leaves the building? Is he permanently severed?
Well, he did leave. We know he left the building once because he showed up at Dylan's house. To do the overtime with him. So we know he can leave. But we've also shown that the severance chip, there isn't actually any physical location that matters. It's just whether it's on or not.
He's quite a complex character that I would like to learn more about because he's almost more of a yes man than Patricia Arquette's character.
I would like to know his motivation. That actor, all the actors, phenomenal.
Do we think Patricia Arquette's character has a crush on Mark?
I think
or just
so.
deeply cares
I don't
about
know if
him.
it's a romantic crush, but there's definitely some sort of connection she has to him.
She's grown fond of him.
Yeah, she's grown fond of him, I think is
Even
the
though
thing.
she's shown to be crazy because she's like praying to like the Egan.
Yeah, the CEO
as if
company's
he's, like, God.
family. Yeah, it's like it's very culty.
There's so many layers.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to it.
So what do we think season 2 is going to be like? My prediction is Helly, our main villain, our big bad. I'm not sure if we do see her any personality. It might be towards the end of the season or like in a flashback. I think she's the big bad. We know that Patricia Arquette's character got fired. Do they rehire her because she was able
well,
to
yeah,
get to
that
the
was
thing?
my thought at the very end of the episode. The finale was she was going to try and stop Heliar, so I was like, oh, this is her in. But she didn't stop her. So I don't know if she's able to worm herself back in. I think it might
What
be
about
more
Mark,
interesting.
Dylan, and Irv?
Yeah,
Like, what are
I
they
think it
gonna
might
do?
be more interesting that she doesn't, but she's still obsessed.
I think so too.
And then like
There's
Irv
a lot
is
of paths. They
Irv
can
is
go
going to
down.
wake up knocking on, like his Audi is going to wake up
Yeah.
knocking on the door of Bert's door and have no idea who he is, or does he?
Aha.
And then we know Dylan's going to be in the break room.
Can we please get season 2? Go watch the show.
Go watch the show. If you listen to all this, we spoiled it, but we didn't. It's really great. It's one of the best shows going. It's definitely one of the best shows going. And after June, we'll have a conversation about, is it the best show
I
going?
can tell you, Apple TV doesn't have a lot of shows, but the ones they do, they knock them out of the park.
I'm going to throw you something else out there, too, when we talk about the best thing going. So we don't know if we have a season 5 of The Boys or not.
Yeah.
But we know Severance is getting a season 2. And we know The Bear is getting a season 4.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, we haven't even seen season 3 yet. But
it
they're
comes out in
filming
June.
but they're filming them consecutively.
Mm-hmm.
I think we got a big conversation around July about the best thing going.
I think so too. Maybe we could revisit that.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to do that. So, all right, we're going to take a pause here and break so that we can make sure that anybody who wanted to avoid spoilers is free, and we get plenty of like 15 to 20 seconds in between so that we don't give anybody anything they didn't want to hear. I did. This is non-spoilery, but Heliar got punished at one point, and when she comes back, Mark says to her, "The important thing is that you apologized correctly, and now you're out." And I looked at you, and you were like, "You just need to figure out how to apologize correctly, and then you can be out."
There you go.
All right. Real quick before we jump into any of the other shows that we're about, I did finish up season 7 of Rick and Morty, which, I mean, if you're a Rick and Morty fan, I thought it was a good season to go along with the show. I know there was some controversy this year. They changed out some voice actors, Rick and Morty. The guy that voiced both of them is no longer with the show for reasons that we won't discuss here, but
Why?
he was a bad person.
Oh,
Like in this day and age, do you need me to tell you anymore? He was a bad
I didn't
person.
know that. That's crazy.
So I thought the voices, I couldn't tell. Like, I think if you really sat there and listened, you could tell, but by 5 minutes into the first
they
episode,
had to do that with like Kermit the Frog because the one guy that played Kermit the Frog for years after Jim Henson, apparently some stuff came out about him too.
yeah. So
think.
anyway,
I don't know. There was some controversy.
they
about
replaced the
Kermit Frog.
voices. I thought they did great. I enjoyed the season. If you're a Rick and Morty fan and you haven't seen it, I know I'm behind because I don't watch them live. I wait until the whole season's out because I'm not going to watch a cartoon show on a weekly release. It's not going to happen. So. All right, and with that, I think it is time for The Bachelor.
The Bachelor. So at the time that you guys are listening to this, it has been a few weeks since The Bachelor wrapped its, 100 millionth season because the show has been going on since I was in high school. And I'm going to say this. This was probably my favorite finale ever that I've seen of The Bachelor. It provided just enough of drama, but it was a good ending. It was a happy ending. And I think Bachelor Joey, is probably the first Bachelor I have ever seen to finish the season where no women from his season hate him. So let's give it up for Joey.
Good job, buddy. Way to be just a basic human being.
So many times, these people, I don't know what they're thinking. They screw up royally, and they'll tell like 3 women they're in love with them. I feel like the sleeping with people and the fantasy suites thing, that depends on how you navigate the situation, which from post interviews, I think Joey navigated that just about as well as you can and protected his relationship with his lead, or his chosen, his F1, as we call them in Reddit speak. And I think Joey has some sisters that have probably watched the show, and I think probably gave him good tips about what to do, what not to do. And I also think he just seems like he's a genuinely nice guy. But I have never seen a show where even some of the Bachelorettes, where they come off just completely scot-free. Like, he did everything right. This needs to show production that it's possible that we can have a happy ending, a good season, and we don't have to, because I think that sometimes production can be evil, and they don't want us to have a love story. They want us to focus more on the drama and destroy people. And I think I don't think we'll ever get it again. It was just that good of a season. Because there was still a little sprinklings of drama. And Joey did end up with Kelsey, as I called it. It was in Daniel's Bachelor Corner, the show notes. I think it was pretty glaringly obvious most of the season that Kelsey was the one. I'm just really surprised at the other people that thought it could have been Daisy. And if you still thought it was Daisy and you weren't spoiled and you watched that finale, even you, Daniel, were like, he's low-key breaking up with her right now, right?
Yeah.
Remember on their last date?
He was breaking up with her without breaking up with
Yeah.
her. Like, he couldn't say it because the producers would kill him.
Yeah.
And so he said it without saying it.
What do you say? He's like, even if we're not don't end up together, we both deserve to find our person.
Yeah.
Like, wink, wink. And I've noticed that there's a lot of, like, new Bachelor watchers this season. I think a lot of the contestants, like, I know Daisy does, like, get ready with me, like, TikToks every week that have come onto the show. And I can tell by their reactions that they've never seen The Bachelor before. Unless production, like, thinks it'll make a good story, like Claire. She was our first post-pandemic Bachelorette. They let her leave the season early with Dale so they could bring in Tayshia because it would make a good story. They've let some people cut some people loose early because it'll make a good story. But most of the time, like, you have to do it. You are the lead. That's what you sign up for. That's what's in your contract. So no, when Joey, apparently he said on an interview that he knew it was Kelsey like weeks before the finale. You have to go along with it. It's part of the show. So everyone's like, well, why didn't he just break up? And I was like, he broke up with Daisy as best. Like, I feel like he could have, like, spelled it in, like, the sand, like, leave. Like, he did it the best way he could go about it. And you could tell that he didn't want to hurt her either. Like, he was the type I felt like it killed him every rose ceremony because he is that nice of a guy. So even you were like, oh, it's not her, right, at all. They did do one thing that surprised me and shocked me. I didn't think it was going to shock me, and I actually sat up on my couch, and that was when they showed Daisy and Kelsey in the limo on the way to the proposal thing together. They never do that. Obviously, Daisy got permission from producers to go to Kelsey's room to knock on her door. And basically, from my understanding, the conversation was, hey, have you gotten any validation? And I think it was kind of more of, and Daisy's explained this in interviews, as her, because they had become very close friends, saying, it's okay. I'm going to be okay. I'm happy for you. So I was like, okay, I already knew that was going to happen from a spoiler. I did not know they were going to put them in the car together to the proposal site. And that actually ended up being really nice. Like, when Daisy went out to go meet Joey, she was basically like, I know. And you could tell, like, she kind of took that weight off him. He didn't actually have to say anything. And then she walked back to Kelsey and said, your mom would be so, like, proud of you and so happy for you, because as we know, Kelsey's mom had passed away. And that was just a beautiful moment of women supporting women, friendship, and it was really nice. We didn't need to see, like, the drama of the two girls, like, hating each other, not being happy for each other. It was actually really nice, because what I've seen a lot of these contestants on The Bachelor say is that you are so trauma bonded by the experience. That's why a lot of them do stay friends, and they get very close to people in that experience. Think of it like summer camp. Like, you can't have your phones, you can't have contact to the outside world, so you do bond with people. And those two did become very close. And I thought that was just one of the nicest, most pure moments I have seen in the history of this franchise. What did you think of that moment as a casual viewer?
When I went to summer camp, phones didn't exist. Like cell phones. I guess, now that I think about it, if they did exist, we wouldn't have had service out there anyways.
And
So-
what did you think of that moment in the show, other than the history of, as we all know, Daniel was very old?
Yeah, it was nice. Like, certainly I like to see that. I wonder, like you said, are the producers ever going to let that happen again? Because certainly they are there to kind of try and drum up the drama a little bit. So
You would think by the nice response people had to it, they would again.
right, but they had that nice response once. Do they think that a second time and a third time and a fourth time will be received as well?
I don't know.
Like, everybody was really happy when the astronauts landed on the moon in Apollo 11. Then Apollo 13, they got a little drama, but by Apollo 14, we were back and everybody was bored of it, and then it got canceled after Apollo 17. Like, everybody
did not see the Bachelor and the Apollo program
and the history of
being
cell
put
phone
together.
reception. Listen, I am multifaceted and available to help everybody connect dots that are not there.
So you also, as a casual viewer, would you say it was very obvious that Joey was going to pick Kelsey?
Yes, and I didn't watch a lot. Like, I didn't full on watch most of the last few episodes, but but just in watching this episode, the last one, it was very obvious he was picking her. And like you said, he basically broke up with her without breaking up with her, and that's what prompted her to go, I need to go talk to Kelsey. Yeah, and see what's up. And
Daisy, what's her name? Daisy,
not Duck.
Only I think that's funny.
So I do need to say, the last episode you made a prediction about who the Bachelorette would be,
I did.
and I believe you were incorrect.
Sort of right? No,
You whip.
I was sort of right. I said Maria, and then I said, or it could be Jen.
Yeah, but
I
what did you say
predicted
before?
no one.
Or it could be Jen.
No one was predicting Jen.
Okay, just all right.
And that leads us into our next segment. After the final rose, they announced the next Bachelorette. It was not Daisy, and it was not Maria. The word on the street is that both of them, they were both offered Bachelorette, and they both turned it down. And it went to Jen. No one was thinking it was Jen. It was surprising when she came out, but go back and listen to the previous episode. I said, my final prediction is Maria, but I said, or maybe Jen, even before I said, and maybe Daisy, and I hope we have Hallmark-themed dates because Daisy's from A Christmas Tree Farm. But I totally said it could be Jen, and that's who it's going to be. It's going to be Jen. Jen is the first Asian lead in the male or female in the history of this franchise that, as we know, is very old because it's been on since I was in high school. What do you think of that?
Oh, it's about time.
It's about time. I think there's always going to be people that are upset. A lot of people, myself included, wanted to see a Maria season because I think she would have been a fantastic lead. I think she would also do great on Paradise. The word on the street is that Bachelor in Paradise is not happening this summer, though, so we'll see. I think Maria build up enough fandom, she can be like the Tyler Cameron who was on Hannah Brown's season, has gone off and done things and doesn't need to come back to the show because she's just that dynamic of a personality. And I think Jen will do good. A lot of people were like, oh, Jen sounded really awkward. And when they brought her out on stage, from my understanding, Jen found out she was the Bachelor like 24 hours notice. Like they made it was that's what I've been told in the Bachelor community. And I also, you know what? I like it when the leads aren't polished. Hannah Brown, known as one of the greatest bachelorettes we ever had, was not polished at all. It makes it more fun. I think the one thing that production, I think, assumed as they were doing the season, it would be Maria or Daisy because they probably don't think, like, why would anyone turn this job down?
Sure.
We didn't get to see a lot of Jen's personality on the show, and I think that's what a lot of people are kind of questioning. But I think she's very pretty. I think the guys will be all into it. I do not think her cast of men look great. They've released some photos, and I hope these men look better.
Busted.
Yeah, they just don't. Maybe I'm getting older. I don't know, because like right now, I think the hottest guy on the previous season was Kelsey's dad, who I want to see as like the golden batch.
You know, I do have to say, if I were a producer and I was doing Paradise this year and Maria agreed to come, I would wait. I wouldn't bring her down day one. I would let stuff.
You wouldn't let her be, what's the phrase, Daniel, for day one? You know what it is. Say it.
First sand. No, I would wait multiple days and I would let relationships start to form and then toss her in there like a grenade and get out of there.
So you are evil like production.
Yeah, I could be. Yeah. I could turn off like humanity and just think about it from what is going to make the most chaos and make this show watchable and trash these people's mental health very quickly.
You just go be severed and then go be on a Bachelor producer. That'll be your job.
That's fine. I told you. I maintain. What's his face has still got the best job.
Jesse Palmer.
Jesse Palmer, best job in TV.
So now we are in the hiatus from Bachelor content.
Oh no!
Until at least the summer. I think Bachelorette is scheduled to air either late June, shocker, or July, and that will be Jen's season. I know they are filming it now, and I think we're supposed to get the Golden Bachelorette, and then the Bachelor. You don't want to watch the Golden Bachelorette.
I didn't watch the Golden Bachelor. I don't want to watch the Golden Bachelorette.
I'll watch the Golden Bachelor if Kelsey's dad is the Golden Bachelor.
Do you think they're putting an actual honest effort into seeing if he would do it?
They hinted at it.
Given the fan reaction, do you think they're actually going to see if he wants to do it?
Yes, I think they will, given the fan reaction.
How many seasons of golden shows do we have before they do Golden Paradise?
I don't know.
Because you got to get a little bit of a...
You do realize that while we didn't watch it, the Golden Bachelor,
yeah, I know,
had amazing ratings.
But they've got to get a bit of a stable built up, right, of people before they
wheel them out.
Before the
shuffleboard on the beach. It's not that funny, guys. I
wasn't suggesting they were all in wheelchairs because they're old.
I'm glad you think I'm funny, and I think you're funny.
And with that, it is time, once again, we are back with the OC rewatch. We are deep into season 4, careening ever so close to the end. We're going to put out there, remind everybody again, we are taking active suggestions for what kind of shows we should rewatch next. I think we've got a pretty good list together so far, but we've got to start thinking about whittling it down and getting it into, a selection for people to make. So we're going to try our best to let you, the listener, choose what we watch next, unless you choose something terrible.
In which case we will reject it.
And we'll reject it outright. So anyways, the OC season 4, what episodes are we talking about today?
Speaking of terrible, we just wrapped up on our last OC rewatch. We left off with the Chris McCahan, Daniel's least favorite type of Christmas episode.
Don't get me started.
And now we are into, which I don't think season 4 is that terrible, but it's weird. We are going to talk about season 4, episode 8, The Earth Girls Are Easy. And then we're also going to talk about episode 9, My Two Dads, episode 10, The French Connection, episode 11, The Dream Lover, and then finally episode 12, The Groundhog Day. So this is a shorter season. There are only 16 episodes. So we're marching along, about to finish this off. We started this rewatch in August.
Yep.
When it was the 20th anniversary of the show's premiere. So the Earth Girls Are Easy episode is a New Year's episode. Things are good now that they had they solved stuff, Ryan and Taylor, in their co-coma. They're together.
Oh, of course. How could we forget the
co-coma?
Solid.
So now it's time to do as we do. We got to mess with Seth and Summer. So Seth and Summer, they have a pregnancy scare.
Yeah.
Only Summer's wanting to keep it from Seth. So Taylor puts the pregnancy test in her purse. And it was Ryan and Taylor were supposed to do a road trip to Vegas. Seth and Summer crashed.
I remember this because I was complaining the entire episode that the road that they were taking to Las Vegas. Okay, listen, I'm not.
They did that same road on 90210.
I've been to Southern California a few times, to LA, San Diego. I've never driven from LA to Las Vegas, but I'm very certain the road from LA to Las Vegas is a regular 4-lane highway.
On 90210, when David was having a manic depressive episode and was on one of his highs, they drove to Vegas, and that's the same road he went like 100 miles per hour
every
on.
show in fiction always has them on these weird, dusty back roads going from LA to Las Vegas, and I think that's just the convenience of filming. Because in The Hangover, when they're driving to Las Vegas, they're just on a regular 4-lane highway.
Okay, so I don't really want to talk about the OC forever, so can we move on about geography and roads and filming?
You know how important that is
if
to
we're
me.
going to complain about the OC sets, we got to complain about the the outdoor like mall set where Ryan and Seth both work, and they keep showing up.
Where like 50% of the season has been.
I'm like, was this a budget cut? Like, I missed the diner. We only saw the diner at the very beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm.
I'll even take the bait shop back. All we have is this terrible set. So if you want to complain about sets, let's complain about that.
I wasn't complaining about that. That was geography I was complaining about.
Okay. So anyway, Ryan and Taylor were going to take this trip on their own. Seth and Summer crash it. Then Ryan's like, what are you hiding from me? What's going on? And then eventually they do find out that it's Summer's test. Seth decides that he wants to propose before they look at the test because, okay, the whole alien thing, we got to get into that. Ended up like an alien like stole somebody dressed up as an alien.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to make sure it was very clear. It was somebody dressed as an alien.
Like somebody was dressed up like an alien, stole the bag that had the test on, so they ended up at this rave. It was a whole big thing, kind of silly. So Seth ends up proposing to Summer. She says yes. They look at the test. She is not pregnant. And then, of course, in Seth and Summer fashion, they have some shenanigans because neither one wants to be the one to say, like, we shouldn't be engaged.
They spend the entire next episode basically having a like driving
each other crazy.
They're playing chicken with each other to see who will blink first.
And then Seth even goes to visit Mr. Roberts, Summer's father, later, who has taken a job at one Seattle Grace hospital. You can tell that this was the time that Grey's Anatomy was huge.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the reference. He's like, sorry, I just got out of surgery. We had to repair a unicorn or something. Because like Grey's Anatomy. And then he's like, and then we had a family team bonding exercise after. Like taking the shots at Grey's Anatomy was funny because Grey's Anatomy was peak back then. I don't remember what episode it was in season 4, by the way, but they've been very like pulp culture references. So they even mentioned Bachelor Bob. So at that point in time, like Bachelor Bob was like known as one of the nicest, sweetest bachelors. We've since come to find out that Bachelor Bob slept with more contestants than any bachelor in history.
Bob.
Like looking back on that, it was like, oh.
I do have one note. Kind of goes to your thing about pop culture, about the things that were really in the zeitgeist at that point. Summer at some point also says, frack that. And where do we know that phrase from, Hope?
Battlestar Galactica.
And it, Battlestar Galactica, it had its moment there at that same time period where it
was interesting because I used to describe Battlestar Galactica when you first got me into it. I said, this is basically the OC, but like on like in this like space science fiction-y world. I used to call it because that's how dramatic, y'all, Battlestar Galactica was. We even had a scene with somebody shooting somebody, just like when Marissa shot Trey.
They didn't play the song.
They should. It would have been even. That would have made that scene even better if they played the what you say. But yes, we both literally paused the TV, looked at each other, and like almost screamed. Like that's when Summer said "frack." That was great. If you know, you know.
Yeah. You know. Listen, it was a very brief moment in time where season 1 of Battlestar Galactica into season 2 might have been the best thing going. And
then it fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
Miserably.
I don't think that's a show I would rewatch. I don't think it fell off as hard as we remember it falling off.
It did. I'd rewatch it for Uncle Cooper.
Yeah, because you weren't the one still humming that song all along the watchtowers for years after that season. And that was like season 4.
That's another show where I predicted plot points, but I was being sarcastic, and then they actually like pulled that out of the rear end.
Daniel, nominate Battlestar Galactica for our next rewatch.
No! There must be some way out of here. Man, it was a good show, though.
So anyways,
this
Hercules.
Is not a Battlestar Galactica rewatch.
No.
We got it before we get into Hercules.
Okay.
We have to wrap up Seth and Summer.
Oh yeah.
So Seth actually decides at one point, like, maybe we should be engaged, just not.
Yeah, he commits
right now. And then Summer's kind of like, I love you, but I need to figure out like what the heck, who I am, what am I doing? Because she's been kind of going through, like, she really liked who she was at Brown. She's not there at Brown, so she's like, I need to figure out who I am too. And then, to kind of help get their relationship back on track, Mr. Chris Pratt, Che, is going to take Seth on a little spiritual journey, find out what their spirit animal is. Seth realizes he's an otter. Summer's like, I'm going to build a website and save otters. Che thinks that he's meant to be with Seth, And that was a funny episode.
That episode where Seth and Che are out in the woods.
Great chemistry.
That was the best part of that episode, and that was a terrible episode of television. Absolutely abysmal.
It wasn't the greatest episode, but those two, they made it work. They had fun. I think it's crazy how Chris Pratt just probably blew up a few years after that. Like after the OC, there'd be a couple years he'd go on to do Parks and Rec, and now he's one of the biggest actors. And it just and they know it too on Hulu. They're always like starring Chris Pratt in this episode. But that was kind of, he realizes it's not Seth who he's meant to be with, it's somebody else, and that was kind of our send off to Che. And then, as Daniel said, enter Hercules, Kevin Sorbo, Frank Atwood decides we have to have Ryan's dad show up. What do you think of that casting?
I don't see it. I don't just like he's playing the role of what you would expect an Atwood to be kind of well. Like, I think we've seen him show up. We've watched ahead of where we're talking about today, and we've seen him show up a little bit more. And I think the acting he's doing is fine to kind of, you can see from the personality, but like just purely the features. Like, I believe that Sandy Cohen is Seth Cohen's father, right? But it's like, I don't really see it with Kevin Sorbo and Ben McKenzie.
So are you Team Bullet instead of Team Frank? We'll get into that as we talk about next week.
Okay.
Bang!
I'm going to say this. I don't want to say this, but I'm Team Bullet.
You're Team Bullet for which I don't even think their relationship is revealed till our
Probably
next week's chatter. But you're Team for Julie?
Yeah.
So you're just not, is it more because you like Caitlyn and Bullet's relationship?
Yeah, I think that
a
she's just so badly seeking some consistency, some solid footing, and she thinks that he gives her that. I think he does give her that, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I think he seems, that's the thing. Like, you told me that I would not like this character, but he would grow on me. And while he still annoys me every single time he is on screen,
bang, say it.
Yeah, bang. I will admit that the way he treats Caitlyn is genuine and not creepy, and just he seems like
it's nice,
very much father-daughter.
I told you that,
and that's something that she needs. And so yeah, I think from that side,
I was right on that.
I would be on that side of that conversation.
I did like the episode where they introduced kind of Frank into the mix, though, because we got to see that Sandy almost like very protective of Ryan, because we know that Frank has a bad past. And I don't know, do you think Sandy felt threatened, like that he would lose his son? Or do you think it was more from a protective standpoint?
I don't think it was threatened that he was going to lose his son. I think it was Frank's been in prison, and we know what we know about Frank from what Ryan has said about the way things were before he went to prison. And so I think that was just Sandy trying to make sure this guy wasn't going to show up just like Trey showed up in season 2 and kind of just derailed life.
Well, I really feel like, too, they don't give enough time for us to come to accept Frank, because let's not forget that Frank said he had cancer to get Ryan to even agree
that
to
was
the
a big
dinner.
red flag.
He lied about that.
Yeah, and that's kind of been washed over a little bit.
Because Sandy punched Frank.
Yeah.
We got to see Sandy throw some punches for once.
It's been a fun mirror, because I don't recall at this point in the season Ryan having punched anyone after, of course, cage fighting Ryan ended.
They've made some jokes about Ryan punching people, but he hasn't. And Sandy, usually, we've seen Kirsten be violent before, like throwing vases at Caleb Nicole and all that stuff. So, yeah, we got all that going on. Ryan and Taylor, their relationship's progressing pretty well until Taylor's ex-husband writes this
Frenchie
salacious
McFrencherson
book about her, about their sexy romantic times. And, of course, Ryan reads it and is like, ugh. And I don't even think he's, like, less threatened about, like, Taylor's, like, sexual past with this guy as he realizes how intelligent Taylor is, how smart this guy is, because the ex-husband, of course, he shows up, Henri Michel.
The most stereotypical Frenchman you could have possibly written. They put zero effort into writing this guy. They just took whatever they knew of French stereotypes and just crammed it into one character. It almost
reminded me of that character, Pierre Escargot, remember?
Yeah. Seriously, like that's how little like effort they put in.
Be French.
Yeah.
You're French. Be French. So we had to have that little roadblock for them, but then ultimately it brings them closer together at some point. But then Taylor, of course, gets in her head, and she's like, well, I need to kind of get to know myself as well. So it's just like, I feel like with Ryan and Taylor, they're super cute, but they both get really in their heads about the relationship. Both of them do that. But one of the reasons why I do like them is I've never seen Ryan smile more than he does when he's with Taylor. I think she just brings out this different side of him. And even as a hardcore Ryan and Marissa shipper, unfortunately, the writers made the very dumb decision of killing off Marissa. And I wouldn't want Ryan or any 18-year-old that loses the love of their life to be lonely forever and never find anybody. And it is nice to see Ryan totally different in season 4 when, like, in his relationships. Like, Taylor is I did not like Ryan and Teresa. Didn't much care for Ryan and Lindsay at all. I feel like he and Sadie, it was just like a physical thing. Like, it almost was like Ryan and Sadie almost came out of the blue to me. Like,
for sure.
Like, what are we doing here? Like, that was weird. It was almost like they just threw that wrench in to throw off Ryan and Marissa one more time. So, but Ryan and Taylor, oddly enough, makes sense to me. I like it. Have you come around? I think you have. When we've been watching it, you admitted it. Like, have you come around to them a little bit more as a pairing?
I'm fine with it.
You told me the other night, you're like, all right, I can see it a little bit.
That's what I said. I'm fine with it.
Okay, so you're fine.
I'm not ecstatic about it. I don't love it, but I'm fine with it. I can live with it. If that's end game, I can live with it. That's fine.
Do you agree though that she does bring out a different side to him that
Sure,
we don't normally see? And the drama that they have is like so low key on the scale of like the Ryan Marissa type drama.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
And I just think it's nice. It's refreshing and I think that's why a lot of people who were hardcore Ryan Marissa shippers like myself ended up being okay with that. And I think Taylor is a hilarious character too. She's funny.
I think
she's crazy, but she's funny.
If they had tried to ratchet up the drama even more than it was in previous seasons, it would have been unrealistic and just taken the show completely off the rails.
Yeah.
As off the rails as, like you said, as off the rails as we kind of are, because it doesn't sometimes feel like we're watching the same show that we watched the first couple seasons. If they had tried to go the direction of just keep ratcheting up the drama between Ryan and some female lead, that would have just gotten insane. And so I do think the direction they went with kind of having Ryan and her more have...
almost like comedic relief.
Well, not just comedic relief. They're having adult issues in a sense of, instead of having these teenager problems, they're trying to find themselves, not even each other. Ryan is dealing with, who am I? And Taylor also is dealing with that. And so I think that's a good reflection, too, of the fact that these are now people that are out of high school. They're trying to move into a new part of their life. And I think it makes a lot of smart sense, but I also can see why the show did not continue.
Balance. Well, it wasn't because of them why the show
No, certainly not.
At all. It was
because the writers made a terrible decision to get rid of Misha Barton.
Yeah, exactly. I think that they just she brings out like a different side to him, and I just think sometimes they are so totally unexpected that it almost worked in a way, and it's just nice, and I really find it. I'm feeling the same way as I did the first time I watched them, surprisingly delighted by their romance and enjoying it. I think it's very different. But not all romances are going to be the same, and I think I don't know. I think they work. I think they work. So the last episode that we are going to talk about, speaking of Taylor being a little crazy, is the Groundhog Day. This aired on January 25th, 2007. Seth and Che get in some trouble with the police when Che drags Seth into helping him try to free a groundhog before Newport's annual Groundhog Day Festival. Are they trying to be like the town in Pennsylvania? Meanwhile, Kirsten gets some life-altering news, and Taylor gets some extra help from a therapist to make things different with Ryan. First off, Taylor's therapist was Joanna from Friends. Have to point that out because the actors look the same. A terrible therapist, by the way. I don't think your therapist should like drive you around, like know where you live and like weird stuff, like right, like some strange things.
I think there's. I think you could write a doctoral thesis on how poorly therapists are portrayed in media.
TV. Yeah, for sure. But the whole Seth and Che shenanigans is Seth agrees to help Che because he felt that Che helped him, but Che obviously was into Seth and
Yes.
thought that he was supposed to be with Seth, but he ends up meeting his soulmate in jail from the groundhog thing, and we got to see Taylor dress up as a groundhog and try to, creep up behind Ryan, which was funny. Kirsten's life-altering news. Do you want to get into that?
She's pregnant.
She's pregnant.
Knocked up.
And yeah, that they try to do the old is Kirsten sick thing? No,
Yeah.
she's pregnant. Cause
I didn't like that head fake. I think they could have done something different with that. That
with
serious
Kirsten being pregnant. Yeah.
depressing thing. And I know that it's it does drudge up old memories for Kirsten, and
That
it certainly
bum Jimmy Cooper.
Yeah, and it certainly is obviously not something they had planned out, but I just thought the head fake of is there something mortally wrong with her was kind of a weird tone that
because
they
you
did
probably
with that.
knew at that point that we knew the show was ending.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, are we going to kill off another character? No thanks. I do think it was nice that they finally gave Kirsten has not had a storyline since her alcohol storyline.
No.
She has really just kind of been there
She,
to make
most
a
of
grumpy
this season,
face.
she's been B plot to Julie, running a whorehouse.
Which all that got solved, I think.
Yeah.
Very swept under the rug very quickly.
Sandy never found out. Nobody ever got in trouble. Everything's cool.
Nothing was ever that big.
Jokes,
That's what I've noticed.
Jokes about STDs, but it's fine.
This season, has been when we get a storyline, they just end it.
Yeah.
Really quickly, move on, and that's kind. And I can just tell that they were like, oh, we got to end the show. We got to hurry up. We got to hurry up and end the show. To the point where we also forgot to mention another guest star, which has not aged well. Chris Brown was randomly in
that's right.
what,
he was
3
in
episodes?
3 episodes, yeah.
He was a band geek, a potential love interest to Caitlyn. And I feel like that was all before his controversies.
Oh, yeah.
And
long before.
He was kind of very up and coming then. All of a sudden you're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, that didn't age well, did it?
I also did not buy him as a band geek.
Me either. And that storyline was weird. It's almost like they had the harbor set still.
Yeah.
They're we can't film everything on this terrible cheap mall set. Let's wheel out the harbor set, make us do some scenes there, because all the Caitlyn scenes in high school just, waste.
It's very clear this season they were not really sure what they were. They had a cast of characters that they had reserved from season 3. And some new people like Caitlyn.
It felt like they're throwing darts at a
they didn't
board.
really know where they were going with it.
I picture the writers as the Charlie Day meme, pointing at the map with all the different directions. We don't know what to do, but we will pick up. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, nothing at all.
We will pick up with more OC content next week, and then we will be in the finale, and we can talk about the show as a whole. So before we wrap up this episode, I do have one question to ask you, circling back to our discussion on Severance.
Okay.
Would you ever agree to be severed?
I would think about it, and at the end of the day, don't think I would do it.
I think I would strongly consider it, but I'm with you. I think at the end of the day, I would just not want, it would drive me nuts not to know. But I think I would consider it. I honestly would.
Do you want me to go deep for a second? I remember when I was a kid that I had a brief stint of time where I did not want to sleep because I was afraid of sleep, because it felt like I was not
did you
there.
Think burglars were going to kidnap you
I
too?
didn't think anything bad was going to happen to the house. I felt like from a sense of existential dread that I was turned off. Right?
Okay, that's weird.
And so I feel very much like that. That's what's happening in a very literal sense in Severance, in the show Severance. Yeah. And this is not spoiler stuff, guys. If you watch the show Severance, you'll find this out in the first 5 minutes. And so I don't think I would do it from that standpoint of it's really a really strange kind of existential question that I think I couldn't handle, knowing that I had my body up moving around doing stuff and I wasn't at the wheel.
I think ultimately my decision, while I would highly consider it, it would be no, just because I am the type of person I like to be in control of all situations. I like to know what's going on. I think all you people that go to a restaurant and just look at the menu when the moment you sit down are insane. What do you mean you don't research them? I researched the menu for like, I'm going on a girls trip in a couple weeks and I already know what I'm ordering from the places that we're probably going to go eat at, y'all. Because I put in the work. I study, I research, I know. Now, of course, I give myself backup options too, because nothing is worse than when you have your mind set to order something and then they're like, oh, we don't have that anymore. And it's just like, what? So yeah, ultimately I have to be in control or I feel very out of balance. So I think that would make outweigh my decision to be severed if I didn't know. Or I'd be like, okay, you're gonna have to cut me a deal and I want to watch the tapes of what Miami's doing. I want to see what she's up to, because I could see, it's almost like they show Helly with the split personality. I could see that being a lot of people.
Yeah.
Mark is not that different.
I don't think so, no.
I think the way his innie is probably how his outie was before his wife passed away. And again, none of this is the spoiler part because we all learned this within like 5 minutes.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, bullet out. Bang.
Thanks for listening to this episode of We Watch TV, a podcast about the TV shows we watch. You can find more from Hope and Daniel on Instagram at We Watch TV Podcast. Drop us a line if you like the show, have a question, or a recommendation. You can find Hope on Twitter at Lil Runner and Daniel on Twitter at The Real Hobo Dan. Music for today's podcast was provided by Your Tunes from Pixabay. Artwork was created using the AI program Midjourney with prompts written by Daniel.